Hey everybody, I'm Mike Marza. We are now exactly 2 months away from Election Day, which means Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, and Curtis Sliwa have just 60 more days to try to convince New Yorkers that they should run this city for the next 4 years. It is not hyperbole to say that this has been the wildest mayoral elections in recent memory, certainly in generations. And these twists, they seem to be coming every day. And in case you haven't been paying attention, here are some of the main storylines that have developed since the primary, and there have been a lot of them. After his decisive victory in June, Mr. Mamdani has been collecting endorsements. Senators, members of Congress, city leaders, and big unions like DC 37 and the United Federation of Teachers, all backing the Democratic Socialist. But some top mainstream establishment Democrats have been slower to embrace him, at least publicly. We're talking about Senator Schumer, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and New York Governor Hochul. Why? Especially with just 2 months to go. Well, that leads us to storyline number 2 and two high-profile Democrats who are running as independents in this race. Of course, we're talking about Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams. The latest polls show both men trailing Mamdani and Mayor Adams in a distant fourth place. The current mayor polling fourth right now. There had been talk about one of them dropping out of the race in an effort to try to defeat Mamdani, but right now both have shown no signs of stepping aside. In fact, committing to staying in the race, which brings us to storyline number 3. Donald Trump. The president has taken a keen interest in his hometown mayoral race. He has publicly said a Mamdani victory would be a disaster for the city. And he has reportedly had private conversations with Cuomo. And then came this bombshell New York Times report yesterday that Mr. Trump was even considering giving Mayor Adams a position in his administration if he quit the race. Same for Curtis Sliwa, a move that would likely increase Cuomo's chances of defeating Mamdani, if you believe a head-to-head poll. Like we said, absolutely wild, and 60 more days to go. So what's going to happen next? And what do we make of what's happened so far? ABC News political director Averi Harper here to dig into this. I wish we had like 7 hours to have this conversation because
there's a lot to talk about.
There's so much to talk about. Let's start with this newish report from the New York Times about how President Trump is trying to gauge the interest of hiring Mayor Adams and Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, to set up this head-to-head with Cuomo and Mamdani. What are you hearing? What do you make of that?
Right. Well, both Eric Adams and Curtis Sliwa, their campaigns issued statements to ABC News saying that these things aren't true, saying that they are not looking to have jobs within the Trump administration, but rather are focused on this race and focused on trying to win in this race. And so it is quite interesting to see. We've seen Eric Adams today continue to push back on that reporting that the Trump administration is considering giving him a job. Other reports say it's within the HUD space. And so we'll have to wait exactly to see what happens. But it is quite remarkable to see the President of the United States seemingly weighing in on this local race. This is the biggest city in the country. This is the place where he made his fortune and came to his rise here in New York City. So it seems to be of interest to him at this point.
Yeah, he always talks about how he grew up in Queens, and we know about his history here with real estate and everything else that you mentioned, but it's been a contentious relationship. He moved to Florida. So, his relationship and his interest in New York has ebbed and flowed over the years, certainly when he entered politics in the mainstream. We mentioned Curtis Sliwa, the founder of the Guardian Angels, the man with the beret that you see, and he's a kind of this perennial Republican candidate. He also said today, no how, no way, he's not to be bought or leased and bribed in order to drop out of the race. But as we approach now, less than 2 months to go after today, what is the calculation from some of these other candidates outside of Mamdani who do not appear to be getting traction to take him on in a way that would win in November? How do they move forward?
Well, listen, you still have 2 months to go, and there's lots of opportunity, I think, to shake up this race. You have to remember, not everybody is paying as close attention as we might be paying attention to this race. There's still debates that are going to happen, and those are real opportunities for those candidates, for Cuomo, for Mayor Adams, to really capture the attention of New York City voters. And so so we're going to see lots of attention paid to those times in October when they're going to be in front of all of New York City voters and when people are really paying attention.
If you make a great point, because former Governor Cuomo today also kind of weighed in. He was asked about this report in the New York Times, and he said he didn't really know much about it, but then he pivoted in the same breath and said, but by the way, I'm challenging Zohran Mamdani to debates one-on-one, sort of playing out the hypothetical that has been reported in the New York Times. Let's hear what Governor Cuomo had to say about this.
I challenge him to 5 debates, 1 in every borough, where we speak about the issues in that borough. We go to Queens, we talk to people in Queens about the issue in Queens, we go to Staten Island, etc. 5 debates, 1 in each borough. Show up, tell New Yorkers who you are and what you really believe once and for all.
It sure seems like former Governor Cuomo wants a one-on-one with Mamdani. What would be the advantages if it was one-on-one? Because right now it is sort of a muddled field. And if you have people who are celebrating one of the other 3 candidates outside of Mamdani, that splinters the vote. So what would the benefit be if it was a Cuomo Mamdani to distill the race down to 2 people?
Right. I mean, with Eric Adams and Curtis Sliwa still in the race, there's only a limited piece of the pie that Cuomo can garner in terms of votes from folks across the 5 boroughs. And so, yes, it is not surprising to see Cuomo try and pitch this as a 2-man race, right? To say that he and Mamdani are the only choices for
kind of embracing
folks,
it, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
For folks who might be wanting to vote for a Democratic candidate. We'll wait and see if Mamdani is willing to participate in those sorts of debates, but he doesn't have to, right? He is someone who is far ahead when you look at polls of voters here in New York City, and so he is really the man to beat in this race. Cuomo is trying to frame himself as an underdog, which is a really interesting place for Cuomo, someone who was popular as a governor, has this storied political background. His family is very, very popular here in New York State, but he's really just trying to get in there and trying to edge out a lane for himself as we approach Election Day.
And I want to go into all the candidates in just a second, but first of all, historically, how wild is this? We talked about this being a wild race, that you have a sitting U.S. president being so focused, whether it's his hometown or not, but so focused on a mayoral race happening in a big city.
Typically, we do not see presidents of the United States weigh in on a local race like this. Actually, many of them try to stay out of that because they know that the weight of their office can sway things in an election like this. But there's nothing that is typical about this president and this administration. And I think he, again, because of the fact that he is from New York City, he has taken particular interest in this race. But it is interesting because, at the end of the day, when you think about someone like Zohran Mamdani, someone that Republicans have across the board attacked as a socialist, you would think that they might want the opportunity to run against Mamdani as we approach midterm elections next year to make him the face of the Democratic Party as they try to maintain control of both the House and the Senate down in Washington, D.C. But that is not necessarily what we're seeing happen here. And so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It is interesting because you see a lot of the cable news circuit. You see some of these prominent Republicans out there who are in favor of President Trump. So they're Trump allies in that way. And they say, well, this would be terrible for the city. They jump from socialist to communist in one jump. And they say that Mamdani would be terrible and the worst thing for New York City. On the flip side, though, the political calculation as you approach the midterms next year would be fascinating to be able to kind of blame anything that would negatively happen in New York on a Mamdani. Let's go to Mayor Adams now, because Mayor Adams has had his own roller coaster ride with the legal trouble. But he's not polling well. In fact, he's polling behind Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate who had been polling in single digits. Mayor Adams is behind him now in the recent polling. How is he looking at this race and trying to figure out where's a lane for him to win re-election?
I mean, it is not looking good for Mayor Adams as he approaches Election Day. I mean, you have to remember, usually incumbents have the benefit of incumbency. That usually makes it easier for them to make their case to folks as they approach Election Day. But I think he has just been hammered by allegations of impropriety, and those around him continuing to face legal issues has not bode well for him. And we've seen Mayor Adams apologize and say, listen, I haven't had the best people around me, but it remains to be seen if New Yorkers are going to be willing to give him a second chance. And when you look at that polling, the fact that he is behind even the Republican in this race, it is not going well for him. It is a real uphill climb for him to even find a way to even try and come in second place, let alone win re-election.
Yeah, and he's been accused of being in some sort of cahoots with President Trump because of the federal investigation that was dropped. And he's trying to get out of that shadow, too.
Right, totally. And the reporting about him perhaps being offered a job within the Trump administration does not help him make the case that he is really trying to put separation between himself and the Trump administration. I think those sorts of allegations are going to haunt him all the way through Election Day. And when we look back on this election, whatever the outcome may be, that is going to be a pivotal part of his story.
And so then we look at, and when we say, by the way, it's somewhat surprising that Mayor Adams is behind Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, that's because New York City is overwhelmingly, the registration is what it is, it's overwhelmingly Democratic. Then you have Zohran Mamdani, a new face in the political mainstream for New York City, an assemblyman in his early 30s. He has a small record, being his age what it is, but he's been criticized for some of these controversial statements, whether it be dealing with police and other elements that are becoming huge headlines right now. How does he wade the next 60 days? As you said, there's going to be more of a magnifying glass on him. What he said, what he wants to do. He's already walked back some of those comments with the NYPD. We've seen that play out in real time. But how does he then kind of land this plane as he heads into November?
Right. I think we've seen him try to moderate his messaging as he tries to appeal to a wider swath of New York City, right? The New York City primary electorate is very different than the general electorate. And he has some work to do in terms of trying to bring folks into his tent. And so that is part of what we've seen him do as he's tried to walk back some of the comments that he's made about the NYPD. He's tried to make clarifications about policing and about jails and about prostitution and some of these other more controversial statements that he's made in the past. He's made inroads and tried to make inroads with Jewish voters in New York City. That has been a particular focus of his election as he's relaunched and as we get closer to Election Day. But I think he is someone who has also made it his mission to be everywhere that voters are, right? He has this, this social media presence that's hard to ignore if you are on devices here in New York City. Folks across the country are talking about Zohran Mamdani as a progressive figurehead. And as the Democratic Party in general has a conversation about a change in generational leadership, ushering in a new generation of leadership, he is part of the face of that.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see as we move forward how he's able to not reinvent himself, but really put forth the final version of what he wants voters to feel like he would be as he takes over City Hall, if that were to happen. One more question and before we wrap up, before we end this conversation, but you mentioned the midterms coming up. It seems like they say politics, all politics are local. It seems like now all politics are national.
Yes.
Because everything starts to, especially in New York. What do you think this race will say about the state of where we are politically across the country with President Trump as the figurehead on the Republican side and the Democrats trying to find somebody who can take on the Republicans in the next presidential election? Right.
Well, we've seen President Trump issue threats about sending the National Guard into cities across this country, New York included. We've seen the administration dangle the threat of clawing back federal funding, which is also something that we've seen cities across this country really worry about and try to make plans for. And so, yes, Trump weighs heavily in this race as well. When we talk about Republicans and the way that they're going to be messaging around midterm elections, they've talked about Zohran Mamdani. He is a huge part of how Republicans are looking at this race as well. And so everything has become much bigger than just the national race. I think also anti-Trump sentiment, too, is a mobilizing factor for voters across this country and particularly here in New York City. And that is part of the reason why we're seeing such excitement behind Zohran Mamdani's campaign. And so, yes, Trump is a national figure, and he is the president of the United States, but he's going to be weighing heavily on this race, too.
And we'll be watching closely, seeing what is going to happen next. And we appreciate you here to kind of break down everything and look at it through the lens of ABC News and your great perspective, as always.
Thank you.
Averi Harper, thank you, political director for ABC News. Stay with ABC7NY and ABC News as we count down to Election Day here in New York City. So much to go through, all the developments, anytime, right here and always at ABC7NY. I'm Mike Marza. Have a good day.